Hello, my friends. Boston, you're my home. I did not even know this was happening today, so I rushed to get in front of my computer, and we're not going to be live, but it just started a couple minutes ago. And Brian Walsh has a conference, and I was waiting to see because I know it's Norfolk Superior. I know we got Proctor problems, and I didn't know that Judge Bev Cannone was going to be hearing this hearing today. And here she is. So she's there. This is Brian Walsh. For those of you who are not familiar with this case, in January of 2023, I remember exactly when this happened. It was like New Year's Day. Anna Walsh, a 39-year-old mother of three, was reported missing by her employer after failing to show up for work. Her husband, Brian Walsh, from Cohasset, Massachusetts, quickly became the prime suspect. Michael Proctor was the lead investigator on that case, and in large part, Brian Walsh is going to be tried on his Google searches because this is a no body murder case. For those of you who don't know, now you know. I didn't even have time to make a thumbnail. I just jumped on here. It could be nothing today. It could be something. If you're ahead on Law and Crime or wherever you happen to be watching this, no spoilers, please. But I sort of like heard, I was outside, I heard Auntie Bev's voice, and I ran in here and I set this up for you. So let's think. Let's see. Oh, Dion as coach? Go Buffs. I mean, did you see that game the other night? What do you think as Dion as coach? He said, we coming. And he humbled his players real quick. And yes, I am a proud alumni of the University of Colorado. And Sco Buff's going to be a great year. Oh, wait a second. I have to switch over to the Ethernet. It's not ready, but I'm going to wait for a couple more people to get in because I didn't even plan this. I just went live like automatically. Here we are. Okay, who's ready to go back to Norfolk Superior with our friend, your friend and mine, Judge Cannone? I don't know about the volume on this, so as usual, you guys, the Law and Crime volume historically is not great. I'm going to put the closed captions on. I'm going to ask for your indulgence. If the volume is low, just tell me, and I will turn my volume down. I'll move away from the mic. The first thing that I heard actually on this was Jimmy. You know, Jimmy, the court clerk. Jimmy, what date do we have? Jimmy. And I was like, oh, I think he's only Judge Beverly Cannone's clerk. So it's got to be Jimmy. It's got to be Judge Bev. Let's check it out. My friends, my Massachusetts friends, my Massachusetts attorney friends, I have a lot of you. We need to see some court docs on him so we can go over them and we can start getting to it. I'll allow it. The volume is low on Law and Crime. Okay, so you guys are going to need to turn up on your end. I'm going to move away from the mic. Do not get flashbacks. Do not blame me for any flashbacks that you may or may not have had. What, if any, flashbacks might you have when you start hearing the voice? I do not know. Everyone's like, I cringed. Oh my goodness. All right, so we'll play this. I don't know. It might not be very long because it sounded like they were just picking a new date. So let's just see what happens, okay? It's all new. It's all new to me and to you. Ask it differently, Mr. Jackson. God save the Commonwealth, Boston Sarah. God save the Commonwealth. God save the rubber duckies. I have a rubber ducky emoji for the members. We covered the rubber ducky scandal last night, and it is quack. I would say whack, but it's quack. You guys quacked me up last night on that stream. If you haven't watched it, go back and watch it. It's hilarious. The man hours, the 36-page police report from Canton PD on the rubber duckies with the sticker on the bottom that said Colin did it, and some other rubber duckies with a sticker that said IYKYK. If you know, you know. And then prosecuting Richard Schiffer for disseminating the rubber ducks and some Amazon purchased $100 bills that were stamped with Colin did it. Go watch it if you haven't seen it. It was funny. We had a good time reading that yesterday because it is unbelievable. Charlie Lynn, freaking amazing. Here we go. We're going to Brian Walsh, and I think Kevin Reddington his attorney? Let's see. Hold on. New court officer. Haven't seen him before. There's the defendant, Brian Walsh, in it.
This is 23 CR 9 really Commonwealth versus Brian Walsh. Can I have counsel identify themselves starting with the Commonwealth?
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Greg Connor from Commonwealth.
Good afternoon, Mr. Connor.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Laura McLaughlin for the Commonwealth.
Good afternoon, Ms. McLaughlin.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Good afternoon, everyone. Kelly Porges on behalf of Mr. Walsh.
Good afternoon, Ms. Porges.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Larry Tipton from Mr. Walsh.
Good afternoon, Mr. Tipton. Good afternoon, Mr. Walsh.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Walsh, you can have a seat, sir.
Thank you.
All right, so, Mr. Tipton, I've read your motion, an affidavit, a memorandum of the Commonwealth's response. Have you had a chance to look at any of the materials that it seems like maybe the Commonwealth gave you in the last week from when the motion was filed, or?
No.
Okay.
Because frankly, we just got it.
Okay. All right, so what are we doing today?
Well, I don't want to speak for the Commonwealth, and I want to make sure that Mr. Walsh understands. I just told him something different in lockup.
Okay.
I think based on the representations of the Commonwealth, both in its communications yesterday and then this today, there's a lot of discovery forthcoming, some of which addresses some of our requests, some of which probably don't. So I think it's a waste of our time to argue this extensive motion and memorandum of law. And I was going to explain why we filed such a detailed memorandum of law, but I don't think I need to waste the court's time with that. So I think what we're suggesting is, at least what we're suggesting, is that we come back on December 2nd, having had a chance to review what is coming, and then
Narrow the motion as to what you might still need. All right. I'm sure that's fine. If you determine that some of what you're requesting is Rule 7.
I know the volume on Long Crime sucks. You got to use earbuds. I can't do anything about it. The boosters don't work.
Do you anticipate being able to file them that day or not? I'm not telling you you have to, I'm just.
well, I can tell the court that we're certainly looking at our request to see if they require Rule 17. And I'll just very briefly say that in our memorandum, when we address internal affairs, we are suggesting that right now, under the present facts and circumstances that we argue in the memorandum, that a Rule 17, even for internal affairs, isn't necessary given where we are today. And the court may certainly disagree, and we said in our memorandum, if the court orders us to follow Wayness, we will. But if we know that a Rule 17 would be required, I would anticipate we would bring it with us.
And it's not necessarily regarding the internal affairs,
Right.
but other things you were looking for, I
Exactly.
thought were probably a little bit more obvious, Rule 17.
Okay.
So that's what I mean, not those. I understand litigating whether the IAD information is Rule 17 or Rule 14. I can see that maybe we will have to have that discussion, but the others that I think maybe after you look at what you have, you might think is Rule 17.
Yeah.
So on those, do you anticipate you might be able to file them by then, or it's too early to tell?
I think it's too early to tell.
Okay, how about if you can, you will?
That's absolutely right.
Okay, all right, does that make sense, Mr. Connor?
Perfect sense, Your Honor.
12-2 works for me, Jimmy, does it work for you?
It does.
Okay, do you want Mr. Walsh brought in that day?
I think we should issue a Hague, and then Mr. Walsh and all of us will talk and see if he needs to be brought in. But
Okay.
if we're going to have a hearing, yes, I will.
Sure, so we'll bring you back, Mr. Walsh, but if you don't want to come, let us know, and I think that.
Of course he wants to come.
Just finally, and I don't want to interrupt another Commonwealth, but the Commonwealth has filed a motion for protective order
Yes.
for some of this stuff. Right now, the status of that, we don't object to the protective order. Our understanding is that we can share the information with Mr. Walsh, but we're not going to give him hard copies of everything just yet. And we don't object to the redactions that appear today. We just want to review what we have, and then we'll come back. That's our understanding of the protective order.
That's our joint understanding.
Okay, that's what I would order anyway at this point, so, all right, so I'll allow the Commonwealth's motion for protective order.
I'll allow it.
All right, we'll see you December 1st,
December 2nd.
December 2nd.
December 1st.
All right.
Sunday.
So Jimmy, you can take all my notes off of the paper yours, please. If you would. All right, thank you all.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you. Thank you.
It's, Jimmy. Jim.
Jimmy, Jimmy, Jimmy. Jim.
That's okay, I don't care. Thank you.
Hot mic.
Sandra, when it was so
That's okay. I don't care.
Commonwealth versus Cruz.
All that for nothing. Oh, that's the courtroom. Okay, that's the courtroom Karen Reed's trial was in. Now you can really, okay, you can put your volume back to normal so I don't have to whisper. I do that as a courtesy for my friends who need to turn their volume up real loud. Law and Crime's volume is historically terrible. This is the exact courtroom that Karen Reed's trial was in. Look how tiny it is, okay? So at the top of your screen right here where there's Manna standing in the blue suit, that's my cursor, don't break your TV. Right behind this man was two what looked like church pews, for lack of a better term. And right here is where Paul O'Keefe was sitting, and the entire O'Keefe family would sit in the front row with their guests and the back row. Remember, each side had 10 seats per day. And then right behind this rail to the left of your screen, that is where Karen Reed's family sat, and they had 10 seats each. And then here to the way left of your screen is the podium where the attorneys would question from, but usually they would move the podium to right here in front of the Reed side of the bench. This is the exit door to the courtroom. The defense sits in the table behind the prosecution, which is also really strange. It's almost like the prosecution is attached to the judge. And then right here at the bottom of your screen, that's where the jury sits. So it's a wicked small courtroom. And then the camera for Law and Crime, or it was Court TV during the Reed trial, is in the corner to the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Behind that, like up, there's hardly any room. There's a huge camera, and he has to stand up on a chair or like a big stool and get what he can get. And the day that I was in the courtroom with Mark Betterow, that was the day they called a juror to the bench, and by mistake, the Court TV camera captured the juror. And then the judge said no cameras for the rest of the day. The cameras were shut off, and they had a terrible Zoom feed with a terrible angle. That was the day that Jessica Hyde testified, and it was also the beginning of Trooper Paul's testimony. So there, my friends, is your bird's eye view of the courtroom where the Karen Reed trial was. And remember, the reason that they switched to that smaller courtroom is because in the courtroom they originally had, half the jurors were going to be staring at the back of the witness's head. And the defense made a motion and was like, yeah, no, the jury needs to see the witnesses' faces in order to assess their credibility, or otherwise the defendant's not getting a fair trial. And Judge Bev and the Commonwealth were like, yeah, no, that's the way it's been done for 100 years. Which is ridiculous, but they moved it to this smaller courtroom. Anyway, here we go. So Brian Walshe, the Cohasset, Massachusetts man who is accused of killing and dismembering his wife, Anna Walsh, and his attorneys, as you saw, just returned to court. There was really nothing to report other than they're going to come back on December 2nd. However, the reason that this is so, I mean, it's an important case regardless, but Michael Proctor, the former lead investigator in the Karen Reed case, who during the Karen Reed case was demoted to, case manager or co-investigator or customer service representative, was also the lead investigator on the Brian Walshe case. Brian Walshe is 48 years old. He was arrested on January 18th of 2023, and he was indicted by a grand jury for charges including murder, misleading a police investigation, obstruction of justice, and improper conveyance of a human body. He is being held in, guess where, Norfolk, without bail. This is a no-body murder case, and he is being convicted largely on Google searches that he made prior to and I believe subsequent to his wife's disappearance. They never found her body, but it's believed that he dismembered her and disposed of her body. It's a very sad case. They have children. So because Proctor has been involved in this, they were sent one of those letters that was also sent out in the Karen Reed case about his internal affairs investigation. And Walsh's defense attorneys now want the prosecution to share all the documents related to Proctor's work on Walsh's case and all of the investigation into the death of Sandra Birchmore. They also want documents pertaining to Proctor's job performance. The argument by Walsh's defense team is that Proctor's text messages about Karen Reed revealed bias by Proctor and that he might similarly have been biased against Brian Walsh. Walsh's lawyers say they have found no evidence of police or prosecutor misconduct so far in Brian Walsh's case, but they want the documents so they can check for themselves. And of course, the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, we saw Ms. McLaughlin in there. It was not Lally today. It was Ms. McLaughlin and another attorney whose name I didn't catch. They say that they plan to share with Brian Walsh's defense attorneys everything relevant to his case, but not the other cases. So, you know how Judge Cannone loves her Rule 17 motions. There was a little bit of talk there about Rule 17 motion. And as if you recall, the Rule 17 motions are involving summonses for third-party records. We heard a lot of Rule 17 motions in the Karen Reed case because the defense wanted third-party records, including Jennifer McCabe's Google searches, Jennifer McCabe's call histories, and that motion, in fact, for Jen McCabe's, I think, and for Brian Albert's records went up to the SJC and was reversed. Judge Bev was reversed for some of it. So, yes, Guarino, I call him Trooperino. The Irish girl did not find 30,000 texts between Matthew Farwell and Sandra Birchmore. He also didn't find a lot of Jen McCabe's Google searches and deleted calls and other deleted text messages in the Karen Reed case. So, Trooperino, wonder if he was involved in the Brian Walsh case as well. Thanks, Charlie, then, for the tenses. We're still all traumatized from hearing Judge Bev. Oy vey. Hi, Colleen St. Ange. Thanks for the 20 and for thanking me for keeping you all up to date with a bit of humor. We needs it. We do needs it, don't we, Colleen? We do needs it. That rubber duck thing yesterday was insane. Absolutely insane. And thank you, Colleen, as always, for your very generous 20. I appreciate you so. I didn't know that Judge Cannone was going to be sitting in on this, and I don't know if she's taken this case, on her own and just decided that she wants to take care of this case too, because this one's going to be high profile too. Especially, well, it was already because, these things don't often happen in upscale suburbs such as Cohasset, Massachusetts. And I don't know if this is a new assignment for her, if she's been handling this case all alone. Do any of you guys know? Thank you, Rehab Department Groups. ADA Greg Connor has Brian Walsh's case. Okay, so that's the ADA. Greg Connor, he is actually a really good ADA. He sat in most of Karen's trial and her pretrial appearances. Thank you, Greg Connor. And also, so I guess his second chair is Ms. McLaughlin. And it looks like Brian Walsh, as I heard, him introduced himself as Larry Tipton, is his attorney. I don't know who his female attorney is because I didn't catch her name because this was so last minute. And I must be mistaken because Kevin Reddington represents Dr. Ingolf Turk, and that's the conference that we caught after we watched a conference last week on Aidan Carney. After Judge Rayburn left the bench on the Carney matter, we heard Judge Cannone's voice, and she came in and did a conference on Dr. Ingolf Turk, who is another murder case in Norfolk County. Maybe you guys do have a lot of murders there. And his wife was found near the pond at their home or near their home. Ingolf Turk. So there you go. Let's see if we can find some things to talk about Brian Walsh while I have you here until Sarah Boone's hearing, which is going to happen in about 20 minutes. And then I want to know if you guys want to talk about, here's what I want to talk about next, is that sheriff that shot the judge. I can't even use I shot the sheriff in my thumbnail, but the sheriff shot the judge. And now it's turning out that the sheriff in Kentucky might have shot the judge because the judge might have had something to do with the sheriff's daughter, as in the R word. And I can't confirm that yet, but there's been some talk of right before the sheriff shot the sheriff and the judge exchanged phones and then something happened. Yeah, we're going to have to go to Kentucky. And I think what we'll do is we'll look at that hearing from yesterday. Because that's wild. Let's see if I can find something quickly to show you on Brian Walshe before we go. And I get some of your thoughts, my friends. Yeah, the judge handed over to the sheriff, and that's when he shot the judge. I mean, it's very scary. I don't know what he's been charged with, so I really this is like the first that I'm starting it. So if that is true, that is an amazing example of possible jury nullification. So jury nullification, for those of you who don't know, is when the jury just refuses to follow the law and they're like, yeah, he deserved killing, so therefore not guilty. Brian Walshe also, yeah, he was convicted for selling fake Andy Warhol paintings, right? Yep. So he was convicted or sentenced on art fraud charges. Let's just take a look at this quickly. Oh, that's just only 30 seconds. We need some more of that. Hang on. So this goes back to February of this year, and this is when he was sentenced on those art fraud charges. Poor Brian Walshe has got a whole bunch of trouble. He's got a whole lot of problems. But it's going to be interesting.
Cohasset man is accused of murdering and dismembering his wife will be sentenced tomorrow, but for a different crime.
5 Investigates Karen Anderson has covered the Brian Walshe story extensively for more than a year. And Karen, this charge is for art fraud, but there's so much more to it than that, isn't it?
Anna Maria, Brian Walshe has already pled guilty to selling fake Andy Warhol paintings. So what, if any, prison time he gets tomorrow depends on how the judge sees the other frauds that Walshe is accused of committing.
He was very calculated, almost genius about how he went about things.
That's one of 3 victims of Brian Walshe's art fraud, speaking to 5 Investigates last year. He's the owner of the largest Andy Warhol gallery in the world, and Walshe was still able to sell him a fake. Walshe pled guilty in 2021, but the case didn't end there. The judge was about to sentence Walshe to time served when he learned a restitution check from Walshe had bounced.
Look at how different he looks in these photos from February and how he looked today in the courtroom. Dressed to the nines with the expensive suit, expensive tie, the haircut. He's lost a lot of weight. I mean, what a difference.
Time served when he learned a restitution check from Walshe had bounced. So the government began a new investigation asking, did Brian Walshe hide assets to avoid paying his victims back, including what he took from his late father's estate? Friends and relatives of his father, Dr. Thomas Walshe, accused Brian of going into his father's home in Hull and destroying his will so Brian could take over. That's what he started to do, withdrawing more than $100,000 from a bank, selling his father's paintings, jewelry, and other items, and attempting to sell the home. A friend took a picture of his father's will before it disappeared, where he wrote, "I hereby bequeath to Brian R. Walshe my best wishes, but nothing else from my estate." Back in the art fraud case, federal prosecutors say all of this amounts
Nothing made Brian Walshe angrier than getting cut out of his father's will, huh?
to obstruction of justice. And that's why they are now asking for a 30-month prison sentence. So Walsh's attorney says there was no obstruction and he should receive no additional prison time. All of this is playing out in federal court while Brian Walshe is in state custody facing charges that he murdered his wife Anna in their Cohasset home last January.
So let's take a look at the original arrest of Brian Walshe. And this goes all the way back to January 9th of 2023.
Police are guarding the couple's home where they say they found blood and a knife in the basement. WBZ's Jordan Jagalinzer has been at that scene all day where neighbors say this mystery has shaken them. Jordan?
Well, that's right, Lisa. It was another long day for investigators, now still searching for Anna 8 days later here around her Cohasset home. You can see behind me, police are still on scene, guarding the driveway to the house where there is still an officer up there as well right now. And the members of this community that we spoke to earlier today say they're shaken by what could have unfolded here at this home. Investigators continuing their search today for Anna Walshe, going in and out of this Cohasset home where the mom of three was last seen between 4 and 6 a.m. New Year's Day.
Something like this doesn't usually happen around here, so I think it might have a little more impact on people.
Michael Johnston has kids of his own. He says the tight-knit community is now on alert after hearing today's revelations in court.
I saw the arraignment today, and that was pretty troubling.
Investigators sharing that during their execution of a search warrant on Sunday, blood and a broken knife were found in the Walsh's basement.
It's scary. It's definitely disheartening to hear about any human, let alone another woman.
Now, for the past 24 hours.
Well, that's interesting. I forgot they did find blood and a broken knife in the basement of their home.
Police have been combing the woods around the house looking for any sign of Anna and more evidence about what could have happened to her.
Driving by, there's been tons of activity, like a quarter mile down the street.
And this grandmother can't help but think about the Walshe kids.
I feel badly. I feel terrible for the children.
Those kids, ages 2, 4, and 6, and now in state custody while their search for their mother continues. Just a couple of hours ago, we saw more evidence trucks leaving this home here in Cohasset as police try and find her. Live in Cohasset tonight, Jordan Jagalinzer, WBZ News.
But again, if Proctor was in charge of that search and that case, who knows what's going to be admissible, what's not going to be admissible, whether they're going to get a hold of Proctor's phone and find out that he, as such, was, showed bias in his messages also. This was January 18th of 2023. And that is when he was arrested. This is his indictment. I'm going to let you listen to the prosecutor read his Google searches to you, just trigger warning yourself. They're very unpleasant. However, again, this is John O'Keefe was 129.22 because last night during Rubber Ducky Gate, we learned that it was not a leap year. So 229.22 was wrong on those bills that were distributed or littered by Mr. Schiffer. This is 1 year later. And begs to, do you think Proctor was up to his same old tricks or you think he just hated Karen Reed? I mean, who else is banging on the jailhouse doors right now? This was, I just told you the date, January 18th of 2023. This is his arraignment. These are the Google searches.
What I'd like to do now is just describe his actions in the days from January 1st. Defendant indicated on January 1st at 3 p.m. he did some errands and went to his mother's house in Swampscott, but got lost because he didn't have his phone. He said he knew he was lost when he saw the pirate ship on Route 1. Defendant stayed 15.
Wait, I don't know if the closed captions are right, but she said he knew he was lost when he saw the pirate ship on Route 1. Is there a pirate ship on Route 1? Boots on the ground, friends?
15 minutes, then went to Whole Foods and CVS. Surveillance was checked and he did not enter either of those stores. On January 1st, defendant Googled using his son's iPad. Some of his searches are as follows. Keep in mind that the defendant said he left at 6 a.m. At 4:55 a.m. on January 1st, he searched how long before a body starts to smell. At 4:50.
Well, at least he didn't say how long before a body starts to smell. So remember, this is a huge part of the Walshe case. That on January 1, New Year's Day of 2023, he Googled on his son's iPad at 4:55 a.m. Again, they've got all the times, they've got all the things and stuff that prosecution argued during the Karen Reed case were not accurate. And I kept saying during the Karen Reed trial, they're not going to be able to use this as a shield and a sword. They can't use it in the Karen Reed's case and say, oh, Celebrite's not accurate. Google searches aren't accurate. Timestamps aren't accurate. That's not really the time that he did this. And then use it as a sword in Brian Walshe. And it's going to be a problem, in my opinion, but let's listen to the rest of his disgusting searches.
8 a.m. How to stop a body from decomposing. At 5:20 a.m. he searched how to unbound a body. At 5:47 a.m.
Look at him shaking his head like,
10 ways to
like, oh no, I didn't. It was my son's iPad. So obviously it was my son who did this. The oldest child in their family was 6 years old. Do you think a 6-year-old was searching 10 ways to dispose of a woman's body? It's a big problem for the prosecution.
dispose of a dead body if you really need to.
If you really need to.
At 6:25 a.m. on
How to dispose of a body if you really need to.
the 1st, how long for someone to be missing to inherit.
Oh,
At 6.
There's the money. Follow the money. How long for someone to be missing to inherit? There's the money. Follow the money. But again, these Google searches are probably not accurate, right? Maybe, since he wasn't arrested until the 18th and this happened, she went missing. I think she was last seen on New Year's Day. Tick, tick, boom. 18 days later, maybe, he's going to say those searches weren't made on that day. They were made really, yesterday on the 17th. And really, I only searched those because, I didn't know how long it would take for me to, be able to collect on her insurance because I don't work. I've been I'm a deadbeat and I got bills to pay and I need to know when I can collect on her insurance. It wasn't me. The Shaggy defense. It wasn't me. Listen, the only reason I used my son's iPad because my thing was dead, and so I had to use his iPad. And when I opened up the Google search bar, it must have reverted back to January 1st because that was the last time. Oh yeah, now I remember. That was the last time that my son was using his iPad. So remember in the Karen Reed case, how, it's not accurate. Right. Celebrite doesn't really work right. And in fact, Ian Whiffen even testified in the Karen Reed case that he even worked for Celebrite and they had to change their whole system because they knew those timestamps and dates were not accurate.
6:34 a.m. on the 1st, can we throw away body parts? At 9:29 a.m., what does formaldehyde do? At 9:34 a.m. on the 1st, how long does DNA last? At 9:59 a.m., can identification be made on partial remains? At 11:34 a.m., dismemberment and the best ways to dispose of a body. At 11:44, how to clean blood from wooden floor. At 11:56 on the 1st, luminol to detect blood. At 1:08, what happens when we put body parts in ammonia? At 1:21 p.m., is it better to throw crime scene clothes away or wash them? Those were on the January 1st. There was also information gained from the defendant's phone, which showed on January 2nd, he was at Home Goods in Norwell, where he purchased 3 rugs. There were also more Google searches on January 2nd. At 12:45 p.m.
But can we trust the Google searches, my friends? Can we trust them? Because in Karen Reed, they told us we couldn't trust them. How can we trust them? We're supposed to trust them here, but not there? Yeah, the Karen Reed case is fully Monty Python crazy. Say no more. If you know, you know. They got him buying a couple of rugs at Home Goods.
Hacksaw, best tool to dismember. At 1:10 p.m., can you be charged with murder without a body? At 1:14 p.m., can you identify a body with broken teeth?
Can you identify a body with broken teeth? So I guess in this case, the prosecution is going to want the jury to reach the conclusion that he bought the rugs because he wrapped her body up in the rugs. He dismembered her using a hacksaw. He took all her teeth or broke all of her teeth. And they're going to have to be expected to believe that based on these Google searches, which are germane to the case. Germane. Thank you, Ms. Mojo Horizon, for your super sticker. 2 super stickers. Thank you so much. Sarah and Shock and Horror, you gifted 10 memberships. You are the sweetest and newest member of the Mod Squad here at the Cupcake Nation. Thank you, Sarah and Shock and Horror, for everything you do for this channel and for me and for the 10 new members that were joined, that were gifted today. I hereby knight you as a member of the official Cupcake Nation. Thank you, Sarah and Shock and Horror. Jules the Cat, the sheriff, mad, judge, helping wife and daughter leave. Okay. All right. Listen, I got to dig into it more. Like I said, somebody sent me something this morning about the other thing that I mentioned. And so we cannot confirm or deny, but we are going to dig into it a bit more, the sheriff thing in Kentucky. So I'm glad that you guys want to hear about it. I'm glad you're interested in it. She's always so nice, Sarah and Shock and Horror. They may be able to identify the teeth by the roots. I don't know that they found any teeth. I don't know that they found anything. They didn't find any parts of her body. I mean, they found a broken knife, which with some blood in the basement. They have some surveillance of him going into, or a receipt or something from Home Goods showing that he bought 3 rugs. And they've got all of these Google searches apparently on his son's iPad from January 1st and January 2nd, and perhaps some other dates after. But it's going to be a wild case. Let me just check mass courts and see what the next. So they said the next court date is going to be December 2nd, which is when I think they're going to argue some more about Michael Proctor and what they're entitled to regarding Michael Proctor. In the Walshe case, Charlie Lynn, the true culprit, asked him to Google all that. Oh, that's right. That's right. Whoever it was, or wait, how about this? Even better. Maybe whoever it was that did this did it in the house. He wasn't there because he was getting ice cream or something. And then the culprit found the son's iPad and started Googling all this stuff, and then just left the iPad there, wiped it of prints, left the iPad there. I wonder if they collected the bloody knife and I guess it was blood and a broken knife. I wonder if they collected it in solo cups. Tell me, does Cohasset have its own? I duck and love you too, Debbie do. Does Cohasset have its own PD? Or what would the local PD be before MSP got involved? Because it was a missing person case, remember, at first, because there was no body, right? There still is no body. So does Cohasset have its own PD? Cohasset has PD. So thank you, Mrs. Wicked. Mrs. Wicked Smart. You are wicked smart. You are wicked smart. Thanks for coming in. They have their own PD. They would have been first on the scene. Yep. And then when it turned into a homicide, and I don't know how much after that it was, then the MSP would have been involved, and then Proctor would have been involved. And they're going to say that Proctor planted it, says Beach Nance. Right? Thank you, Mama Shea. Legit theory. I'm with you. He was out for duck and ice cream. He was. Right? I wasn't gonna stream the Sarah Boone hearing, but do you guys want to? I think I saw a lot of other people were doing it. But we can if you like. Would you like? I wonder how long it's gonna be. Tell me if you want to. We'll just pivot over to a different stream. It's 2:56 right now. Professor Plum did it with the rope in the library in Canton, Massachusetts. Yes, Sarah Boone. Yes, let's do it. All right, let's see. I mean, I haven't been following that one all that closely. But what better time to start than now? Oh, something else I wanted to tell you guys before we move over to this is, did you see the recent court TV coverage on Carly Gregg? Did you see it? Not only Julie Grant but Vinny both did pieces on Carly Gregg and the fact that her father came out to talk to the media, and they were both very, very fair in their coverage. Really, really interesting. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. For the first time in however long. I mean, yeah, that's a little bit. All right, just put Sarah Boone up, so we'll teleport over there. Did you guys see? No, it has not yet been responded to, Carly's motion. Julie Grant was fair. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I'm going to do a show on it. I've been talking to Bridget to come back and do another show. Thank you, thank you, thank you to all of you for joining me. Let's teleport over and watch the Sarah Boone hearing together, shall we? Let me just set it up so that you guys can get over there. This is one of those days where we just do things on the fly. Because it's kind of fun that way when we don't really have a plan, isn't it? I think so. All right. Let's go on over there. I will, as soon as I hit end on this, you will be teleported over to the Sarah Boone hearing, and we're going to cover that. It hasn't started yet. So hopefully their sound will be a little better. All right. Head on over. See you there. Teleport safely. Safe travels. See you in a sec. Oh, and be cool, be kind, be classy. And thank you, everyone, for everything. And smash the like on your way out. Thank you.